Hello and welcome to the Loving You interview series, conversations with wellbeing and holistic experts on self-love and self-care. So today I have with me Rob Chapman, who is a spiritual coach and hypnotist who empowers people and supports them in their personal and spiritual development. So welcome, Rob.
Good morning.
It's really lovely to have you here. I was just saying, I was really excited about having Rob here to get a man's perspective on self-love and self-care. So I feel that it's not very often that we hear that men have a voice about these subjects. So it's really exciting to have you here for that reason and many other reasons as well. So I would like to begin really with you talking a little bit about your spiritual journey and where and how you found hypnotism, and so why these things. We all come to these particular ways of delivering our message, so why and how?
I'll do the abridged version. I mean, hypnotism. I'll start just with the hypnotism. I was on holiday when I was about 10 in Cornwall, and I saw a stage hypnotist at the holiday camp, and I still to this day it made such an impression. I can actually perform now his whole act, and I can still remember it, and I can still picture it, and it just stayed with me as just an amazing thing. And so when I got back off holiday, I got into some books from the library and just kind of on and off had studied it. And then later on in life, I've been kind of professional magician as well for 20 years. So doing close-up magic, and I kind of picked hypnosis back up initially as part of that. And I've done the big stage show stuff with it, but I do a lot of festival work with that, and I can literally walk around a festival and share a bit of time with people, but then use a little bit of, don't even need to use the full hypnosis thing, but just a little aspects of it to just leave them with a good feeling, leave them feeling happier. Or if someone's just a bit low energy, you can just just help them get inside and just tweak something that just gives them that boost and that lift. So that was hypnosis. Spirituality has always been a part of my life as a kid. Apparently, I don't remember it, but I apparently wanted to be a vicar, and I kind of, well, it's different. About 8 or 9, kind of started, I was interested in martial arts and also started reading about meditation. By the age of 12, I was reading books, everything from mind split and psychology and psychoanalysis to meditation, Buddhism, Hinduism, esoteric studies, and that's just been my life. And then I had a bit of a spiritual crash where basically I was young and I'd pedestaled people and thought the world was going to be this thing, and I was getting into all this stuff and meeting all these people, and I had the rug pulled out of me very quickly, and it left me very disillusioned and completely lost, completely just lost, just like in a wasteland, just nothing to cling on to. And I ended going up and chatting for about 6 months on and off to a vicar, and he was great. He didn't try to insist that I did anything. I said, look, I have this connection, I have this something within me, and I'm just in a bad place, and I like being me, but at the moment that experience is a bit trying. And he lent books, he talked, helped me explore, and actually got me, I don't know whether it was deliberate, to the point where I was going to go and actually do a monastic retreat and start looking at training to be a priest. But something inside was like, that's not quite your path, that's not quite where you're at. And I'd always kind of loved music and play music, and was playing in bands and stuff at the time. And I started looking around for spiritualities and practices that allowed for that love of music, also writing poetry. And I discovered Druidry. I joined the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids, and just it opened up a whole new world to me. Have met some of the most amazing and beautiful people through it, and I ended up for 8 years running public gatherings, discussion groups. The Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids have twice a year a big gathering in Glastonbury, and I was asked to write all the rituals and for the Glastonbury tour and for the Chalice Well, and do the workshops. So creating workshops for 300 people to give them an experience and to help them learn a little bit more about who they are. And that led to going and doing stuff in Europe as well. So it was amazing. And then the relationship I was in at the time ended, and I just withdrew from it all, and had spent many years kind of just completely distancing myself from all but my own practice. And then as I crept up towards 40-ish, during that time I'd trained to be a person-centered counselor and things in between. But as I crept up towards 40, I was traveling 5-6 hours a day to go and do a half-hour gig sometimes whilst I was performing, and that was too much. It was getting too much, and I just thought, well, actually, what happens when I don't want to do this? 20 years of performing doesn't look great on a CV when you go for a normal job. So I looked at the skills I had. Hypnosis was part of that, the person-centered counseling. I missed doing retreats and being in that space where you can help people. I mean, Aleister Crowley said every man and woman is a star. And I mean, he's not the best person to quote, but that phrase in itself, I think, is a beautiful quote. We all have a light within us, and being able to sit with people and create a space, whether it's in groups or individually, where people can actually see that light and accept their light and allow that light to shine, is something I love passionately. And so I decided, I spent the last of any money I had going and training with one of the country's top hypnotists and mentoring with him down in Devon, which always amused me. As one of the country's top hypnotists, I've always thought that I could have gone down there, shook his hand, he could have gone sleep, stuck me in a cupboard and kept me hypnotized for the time I was down there. I would know no different. Just tell me that when I came out, I would feel like I was a really good hypnotist. But he turned around and he said, you might love your performing. You're obviously good at it to have been doing it for so long, but that's not what you're meant to be doing. He said, you're a teacher, you're a guide, you're a mentor. He said, that's what you're meant to be doing. He said, it still brings in all those skills that you've learned along the way. And so since then, and since that, I fought it for a while, because I do love performing, and it did fight it for a while. It was a bit of a battle, but there's been just certain experiences that have just steered me that way since then, that have reconnected me with doing the workshops, reconnected me with being in that place. And so it's been like 5-6 years now of constant, I believe, and partly because I love it, but partly because I think if you're helping and offering to support people, if you're in whatever you want to do, you should always strive to be the best you can be within it. So I'm constantly studying. Just signed up on a new course again, whilst also continuing another diploma course. So I'm constantly studying, but I have chosen to focus within the remits of meditation, hypnosis, NLP, and the spiritual coaching, because they all mutually support. And I didn't want to be one of these. I didn't want to be a therapist. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but a therapist where there's like about 20 different services that I can offer. I just want to be really good at the things that I love doing. So as I can really benefit people with those tools and skills that I have. So yeah, that's kind of been the journey. Lots of bits missed out along the way. Won't go into the bit about kind of accidentally running a pub and things. That was crazy. But yeah.
Wow, sounds like an exciting and full journey.
I keep looking at it. I don't even know how I got it all fitted in. It's like, what else am I going to do?
Oh, and think how much more there is to do as well. In 10 years'
How much
time,
can we do? Yeah.
Very exciting. Okay, so along this exciting and very full journey, how have you supported yourself through that journey? Have you found that you came to certain practices, or in your self-care, because obviously as practitioners we really need to support ourselves, and often what we teach is what has benefited us. Now, I don't know if you can hypnotize yourself.
Yeah, no, it is a thing. I teach it, in fact.
Oh, okay. So so could you talk maybe into more about what supported you? What have you done for you during that journey?
I've got to say, having trained, done 5 years training as a counsellor, but one of the worst, I still think, one of the mistakes that I made for myself. You can only ever speak for yourself because we're all different. But the one mistake I made for myself was when I hit a bit of a low point, I went to counselling. Which sounds really kind of counter, because later on in my life, I then went on to train as a counsellor. But for me, I'd always been really good at being able to step back from my life. Or I always use the analogy, I love kestrels, so I always use the analogy, I'd soar up above my life like a kestrel and be able to like detach myself and see it without the emotion, and be able to just look at how the best things, what's going on, and understand. And I just did hit a point where that wasn't quite happening for me, and I went to counselling. And I lost something in doing that. I lost something which has taken, I'm kind of, nowadays, I'm kind of back there with it. But I think certainly the time when I was doing workshops and retreats and the whole Druidry thing, was very active with that. And that was very demanding. And the first thing I think is so vitally important, if whether you're some form of spiritual teacher or a therapist or holistic therapist, is you can't give all the time. You can't just give. And that's what, I mean, I was in my late 20s when I started doing all this, the Druidry stuff, and being really busy with that. And then it would be give. And the moment you kind of come up with something new yourself, or you'd read something, that's a great idea, I'll share that with this group, I'll do that with this group. And you constantly got this stream of literally churning out new stuff, new experiences. And it's wonderful. But then one day you wake up and you realize there's nothing of you left. That you've forgotten you along the way. And that's suddenly you're very tired. And suddenly you have no patience, and it's very difficult to then hold the space the way you want to, and to do credit to the people that you're working with. And having realized that by experience, nowadays, partly why I study and I'm always buried in a book and stuff, it's really, really important not to just learn this stuff and then give, do, learn this stuff, but keep feeding your soul, keep feeding your soul, keep learning, keep going off on other people's workshops. It's great to give, it's great to be in service to people. But where do your batteries get recharged? Where do you get nourished? Where do you get inspired? And certainly for me, a huge part of, if I wasn't inspired by what I did, I wouldn't do it. And again, that can be quite a place when you suddenly realize that inspiration isn't there. This thing that I loved has become just my job. It's what I do to pay the bills. So I think it is vitally important to nourish your own soul, especially if you're doing therapies, workshops, teaching, to make sure that you either have every week, personally every day, we should make time for ourselves. We should, even if it's just 10-15 minutes that we put aside, and even if we just stop and just give ourselves, I mean, as teenagers growing up, when we first start really getting into music, I mean, I think most of us probably bought that new album, stuck it on, just lay on the bed or on a walkway out in the garden with the sun, and just lay there doing nothing but getting lost in the music. And we just little gifts to ourselves like that nourish the soul. We stop. I mean, yoga, you do the exercise, you rest. And the danger is that when you're doing therapies and teaching and guidance work, is that you keep doing, and you forget to rest, you forget to nourish, you forget to feed yourself. Money is a shallow feeding at the end of the day. Yes, it's great, it allows you to do things, but it doesn't make your soul sing. So I think for me, it's been very much having kind of been to that place where suddenly the thing you love holds nothing for you because you've given it all away, is vitally important to make that time for you, whether it is just 10 minutes with listening to a wonderful piece of music and doing nothing. Just go, bugger off, world, this is my time now. and I'm having this 10 minutes. Or whether you once or twice a month create a day where you just do something. I remember I was living in Oswald Street at the time, went for a bit of it was a fun time, but it wasn't necessarily the healthiest and best of times for me. And I remember one day just waking up, coming up towards kind of Christmas time, and thinking, I'm burning myself out. I need to do something that nourishes my soul. And I booked myself in, and there was one of the local symphonium orchestra was doing a Sibelius concert in one of the churches. And not, if I told my friends I was doing that, they'd all be like, "What are you doing?" And I went, and I won't lie to you, I sat there, and by the time the first opening half a dozen bars of music came up, I was crying. And there was something deep inside me that said, "This is where I'm meant to be. This is what I needed." All that other stuff was distraction, but I actually just needed to come home to myself and do something that was just for me. And I think that's so vitally important when it comes to our self-care and our self-love.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I can really relate to that. And yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think I mean, certainly on my journey, something that was quite pivotal for me was remembering that I'm not my business, that I'm not what I'm, that kind of that identity, so it's what I've created, and, it's kind of what I founded, but it's not me. And it's important to step away from that, and to nourish you as, a completely separate entity. And I know a lot of and there'll probably be a lot of practitioners watching this, that they do go into this complete rundown because they give their everything to their business. And also, if things go wrong, or maybe not as they expected, their high expectations, it's them that's failed, rather than the business maybe is requiring something different than maybe what they expected, or it's it's manifesting in a different way. And and it's really, really important to have that time away and separate.
And it's where you get new ideas. It's where, like, if your business is going through, I mean, let's face it, lockdown, no one saw that one coming. But by it's good to have goals, it's good to have that focus, but you've also got to allow yourself to step away from it. Like you say, don't identify with it. And in doing so, in creating that space, I mean, for me, obviously meditation is something I encourage everyone to do. I'm currently on a mission that came out of lockdown to teach 1 million people how to meditate for free. And because it's so important to give ourselves that space and time and allow that, because in doing that, in taking that time and stopping, yes, it recharges our energy, it clears our minds, but it also, again, allows ideas and inspiration to come in. And the amount of people who've joined up with the I Meditate, who are kind of saying, this has got me through the last 3 or 4 months, and it's given me the space to kind of realize. I've always thought that the only way what you're doing fails is when you give up, or if you don't even do it in the first place. And there's a lot of people who, especially over the last few months, they've kind of, all my work was in the real world, and suddenly that goes boomf and it stops. And if you identify too much, if you just invest everything you are and start to think you are that thing, the moment that happens, you've got this kind of mountain and you can't see past it. Whereas by creating those moments and being in the habit, I mean, it's a good habit at the end of the day to develop, just giving yourself that time and space, you can step outside. I mean, coming into lockdown after the first week of the novelty of it, I was a bit like, oh, and I had about 3 days where I really there was fear coming up, there was panic coming up, and it's just stopping and noticing it, identifying it and going, that's not going to help me. And choosing the direction to focus, choosing where you want to head, being aware, listening is and accepting that this now is what is. Any moment is just that moment. It is what it is. And I always remember I was living in Devon for a while. There used to be a river near Ivy Bridge that I used to go meditate by. and there was a rock. I used to climb out into the rock and sit on the rock and just face upstream and just hear the water. It was beautiful. And I remember I was things down there weren't quite going how I thought they might, mainly because I'd gone down with no plan. And so I was meditating and just trying to get that calm stillness just to see more clearly again, and just putting it out to the universe. What's not working? Where do I move forward? And just listening. And as I opened my eyes, I saw this fish, and it was doing this, and it was swimming hard against the water coming down this way, and it was going nowhere. It was just not moving. But the moment it decided to change its direction, it flew off really quick with such ease. And it just spoke to me in that moment, that if that's the nature of acceptance, if you try and fight and struggle, oh, this isn't what it should be, this isn't where it is, and you're fighting, one, you're going to burn out. But two, you're never going to get, if you're just so rigid that you're not going to be able to move forward. Whereas if you can accept a situation, doesn't mean you like it, but you're not fighting, which frees up a hell of a lot of energy to go, right, what's the solution? How do I move forward?
It's very much about trust, and going with the flow, and just be willing to receive whatever comes up and being willing to adapt to that. I mean, like, you're a hypnotist, but in 10 years time you could be a ballet dancer, and
And stranger things have happened.
You never know, and that is, it's not sticking to that if this is the way it's always been, but actually, there's a reason for everything, and there's a reason why things change, and maybe you're being called to something different. Exactly. So watch this space for Rob on tour doing ballet. You never know. Men in tights. And on that note, I really wanted you to speak into really about self-care and self-love as a man. And I said at the beginning, this is one of the things I was really excited about bringing you on about, to get a man's perspective, really. And I wonder, I mean, in your experience, do men approach you as a man? Do they find it easier? Do they come to you on these subjects? Do you find it something that they talk about, or is your audience still very much women? I want to know if the men are reaching out. Are they speaking?
The certainly on the hypnosis side of it, I would say, in general, across the general populace, mostly I get two things from men. One is, can you stop me smoking? Which, I mean, is an amazing act of self-love, and self-care. But there's no anything around it. It's just, I need to stop smoking. Or usually it's my wife's telling me I've got to stop smoking. And the other one is, if you're out and about at an event somewhere and you mention you're a hypnotist, is the men usually come out with the quick quip of, oh, can you make her quiet, or can you make him cluck like a chicken? I very rarely get in the general public men that talk anything really about looking after themselves. I mean, I moved to Wem a bit back, and there's friends I've made there in the last couple of years who, after about 12 months of kind of get to know you, kind of knowing what you do, a couple of the guys there have started opening up a little bit more about when they're having a good day, when they're having a bad day, or what can I do to help myself feel better? But it doesn't. Men aren't. I was chatting about this. Was it this morning or last night? And we're still very much stuck in that. It was this morning. That kind of Victorian almost attitude of men don't cry, men don't show emotion, and it's shifting slowly. And I kind of go to events like Conscious Tribal Gathering and do talks and stuff there, and the people that attend those spiritual events, men that are into spirituality, will talk more about themselves, where they're at, kind of what they can do to look out for themselves and just show themselves more love. But in general, we don't. And I mean, one of one of the areas that comes up a lot for people is just that inner dialogue that people have with themselves. You know, we talk about self-love and self-care, and even people who kind of I've met going, oh yeah, no, I practice this, I do that, I you know, I treat myself to massages and aromatherapy. I go on retreat. I do all these things for me to look out for me, and as a symbol of kind of loving who I am. But I have these problems, and then you kind of go, okay, what's the inner voice going? So I'm doing all this stuff, and the inner voice is still going, well, that's not going to work, is it? Oh, you're no good at this. Oh, look at you. Oh, not like anyone's going to think that's any good. What do you think? You're not good enough. And you know, you ask, and the simple thing to do, kind of, would you speak to a friend like that? And men have that going on constantly. As well, that's do everyone, to be honest. Most people. And part of my work is helping change that voice, you know, because it's. But then I think I was chatting about it this morning, and I think women are very good at getting together and being more open and talking at least about where they're at, about their feelings, about just life. Whereas men go down the pub, they meet up and play some sports, and someone will go, "You're right. Oh, you know, feeling a bit rough at the moment, bit down at the moment. Blah blah blah. Oh, come on, we'll have a beer and sort it out." And by that they mean we'll have a few beers and forget about it. And forgetting about it, you know, it gives you a breather. It gives you a break for a day, or if you've had a few beers, maybe 2 days because you're nursing a hangover for a day. But it's not. It's not really that space. So it is. I can probably count on two hands, say in the last 12 months, maybe even one hand in the last 12 months, the amount of males that have come to me for it's a real shame. I mean, there's lots of pushes at the moment to kind of get men to speak about where they're at more, to speak about their feelings, and to connect, and especially in and around suicide and things like that. And it's so needed, but I don't know. I'd have thought by now. I mean, when I was growing up, there was this whole idea of the new man, the guy that was more able to talk about who he was, happy to speak about his feelings, emotions, and it kind of, the idea is great, but it's never really filtered into society. And it's so important. It's so important for everyone, regardless of whether we're male or female, to really listen to who we are inside, to really pay attention to those things that really, because if we don't, we do things like stay in relationships that do us no good. You know, the amount of people, men and women, who are kind of, oh, miserable, and they're doing what they think is expected of them. So with guys, it's like, well, you know, I'm in this relationship, and I'm doing this, that, and the other, and I'm working, and I'm bringing in the money, and blah 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 blah. No, very few people are ever doing what they really want to do, or what speaks to them. It's always what's expected, you know, and depending on your education, you know. So if you've gone through private school, you tend to come out thinking you can do whatever you want, and that the world is your oyster. As you go through your average education, and it's like, well, there's this box, this box, this box, and you can sit in that one, this one. But because you're going to this school, they're probably, just because it's an industrial area, they're going to point you towards factories, and it just, it's a real sadness. It's a real sadness. And it's only beliefs. The only thing that keeps us stuck where we are, the only thing, you know, you, you say to someone, you know, a mate of mine a bit back, it's like, oh, I'm just really struggling at the moment, really down. I was like, well, you want to talk about it, you know. I'm using friends because I'm not, I wouldn't talk about clients, but but it illustrates the point. It's what you want to talk about it. You know, I have a listen, maybe suggest a few things. Oh, I can't do that, and it's just a belief. It's a belief. Our whole experience is a belief and an idea and a thought, and we decide that this set of thoughts are true about ourselves, and we never really explore them. We never really unwrap those beliefs and ideas and go, well, you know, actually, if I didn't believe that, then I could believe this instead. And believing that would make life better.
Yeah.
And I guess that's part of the work I do is with helping people unpack those beliefs and the ones that work for them and the ones that don't. And there's a lot of work there to be done for a kind of, as life's gone on, I realized that there's few of us that really go there and look at and talk about. And yeah, but I literally don't. Let's say mind, body, spirit events different, because you if there are guys coming in, there tend to be people who are more focused that way. But your average Joe Blogs in the street is self-love, self-care nonsense. Just get on with it. And it's
Yeah. And I do, it's something that's kind of, I say bothered me, but something that, you know, that obviously, you know, as womankind, we want to help and support the men that we know that are in our, that are in our lives, and men in general as well. But you know, like women we're really lucky. We have red tents, women's circles, we have all these workshops, these retreats, and actually, you know, I know that we've had, you know, thousands of years of being under the patriarchy, but it's suddenly boomed recently. And as we grow and develop and empower, you know, men are coming along on that journey with us. But I wonder about, well, who's supporting them, who's looking after them, and actually, what do men need? I mean, do they need a change? Do they need something like the red tent? I mean, what's the answer? How do you see going forward? What
I think I think because exactly of what you're saying, the kind of the role and expectations of what is expected or what is thought of to be expected by men has shifted and changed. And I don't think it's just men. I think the way society moves and shifts and changes, and you think, you know, a few hundred years back, most people living in a small town and village had a role, had a place, knew what they were meant to do. Life was this, life was that, and that's so dissipated now. And I think partly that role of being a man in society kind of needs redefining, but not by a collective. Maybe within smaller groups, but more so as an individual journey. If finding, if I've always said that if you're really truly comfortable with who you are, if you truly love your experience of this life that you are, and you accept who you are, and you truly believe your beliefs, then there is no threat, there is no anything, and you can truly laugh at who you are. And I think men need a way of finding that, of one, being able to and allowed to express, you know, so, God knows, I was about to swear.
That's fine, go for it.
Just none of this kind of, oh, I'm a bloke, or this, you know, I've got to be this way, I've got to be, just men need to learn how to just be themselves. We all do. But I think for men at the moment, at a time when roles are shifting, where society shifts, the definition of what it is and what's expected is not what it was even when I was growing up.
Yeah.
Men need spaces to be able to step into those spaces, to be heard and to be listened to. Again, but I'm saying men. This just applies to everyone. I think to be heard, to be seen, to be valued. You know, to see a lot of, quite often here, when I'm out and about, hear groups, and there'll be, and I see it more and more. Like some guy will be talking about something he's just done, and his partner's just like, there's always a quip, there's always something that chips away at that kind of, he's feeling good, he's done something, but then there has to be a poke, there has to be a chip away. And so I think, I mean, we just all need to learn how to witness and listen to each other, to stop judging, to stop placing our expectations onto. I mean, I've been in a few relationships that have fallen apart because the expectation has been there that you're something other than you are. And we are just who we are. We're not something more than. Anything else is nonsense. But being allowed to just be who we are. I mean, I'm fortunate. Fee, who I'm with, really gets what I do. She supports it. She listens. I hope that's a reciprocal two-way thing. But I've been in places where that's not understood, where that's not been the case, or you've been pedestaled by the other person. They see you as, especially I guess for me, because I go out and play music and stuff, people think that you're one thing, and then when they realize you're actually quite a quiet, inward reflecting, emotional, spiritual focused kind of person, that it doesn't, and then you get that kind of trying to shape the other person, and it works in any relationship, but there's this trying to shape people to be what they are not, rather than just accepting them and loving them for that beautiful. I mean, each of us is a wonderful gift to this world. Each of us, you know, no one will ever smile or laugh with your smile or laugh again. No one's eyes will ever light up the way your eyes light up. No one will ever support the people they love the way you support them. No one will ever do what you do as well as you do it, because nobody else is you. And across the board, if we could all start seeing that, if we could all start noticing that, and realizing that, you know, we are born perfect. We're born with only two fears in our lives. And we are born like an acorn with every resource, everything at our disposal that we need to thrive and be the very best us we can be. And I think regardless of whether it's, I kind of, this might not be popular, but I'm really tired of hearing the male, female. You know, we've had recently the whole kind of emphasis on Black Lives Matters, and it's just always division. It's always separateness. And I think people in general, regardless of whether it's male or female, what part of the world you come from, actually especially as practitioners, teachers, healers, it's that separateness that needs healing. So as a male, I need not to be seen as expected to be anything other than I really am. To be accepted, just that's you. And to get away from this whole, you know, male, female, we're just all people. And actually, we really all need just that same thing. We all need food, we all need shelter, we need companionship. We need to be allowed to be who we are, not to be stifled. You know, if you're in a relationship and your partner picks up a hobby from when he was 12 of aircraft model making and it's doing your head in, that's just who he is. Let him do that thing. Don't be on his case about it. It makes a difference. We've all got enough pressures from the outside. At least in our units, in our togetherness, we should just work at I think, but it starts with yourself. That acceptance, you've got to accept who, as men need to be taught, people need to be taught how to accept who they are, warts and all, because we're all perfectly, beautifully imperfect, just like everything else. And we need to learn to accept and love all that we are.
Yeah.
And it's a brave thing, because you've got to be honest with yourself, and we're not always taught, don't cry, don't show your emotion, blah 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 blah. That's not being honest. You're not being congruent. You're not being authentic. We need permission to be authentic. We need permission. I mean, I'll be honest, I'll go see a sad film, I will cry, I don't care where I am. But most of the blokes I know will absolutely take the mickey at me for that. But I don't care, because in that moment, that's what I need to do. That's what I'm doing. But we need to be taught, we need to be given spaces where we can look at who we are and just be told, you know what, that bit that hurts, that thing you did, that probable moment in your life that you're still beating yourself up for, don't bully yourself. Just accept. You are an amazing expression of the universe. You are. But obviously, you can't approach most men and talk like that. And that's the quandary. And it's also, we don't have a right to force that onto people either. You know, people need love. People need support. People need to be able to look and accept and love themselves. But they don't need to be told that's what they need to be doing, because then that's somebody else's agenda, because that's only me talking. My mate Aid, who goes out, drives his truck 5 days a week, goes home, dives in the pub Friday and Saturday night. Who am I? That's his expression of who he is. And so we have to be careful not to just assume that because we feel that this is needed, that everybody feels that it's needed. And just, I think, allow people to know that if ever they do come to a point where, I don't know, shit hits the fan, or life collapses, or they suddenly are deeply dissatisfied, that there are places and spaces and ways that you can then access that support. But if you push it too much, people walk away from it. So, how many times you've been into a shop and you just think, I'll have a look around, it looks quite nice. You get in and the salesperson says, can I help you? Is there anything you're in for today? Or would you like this? Blah, 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 blah. And you kind of, and you leave again. And especially around something as delicate as kind of approaching self-care and self-love with a bunch of kind of average blokes, you've got to make it, or you've got to do it subtly. I mean, one of the things I love about hypnosis and my journey with the stuff that I've done is I don't need to be entering into a set space or creating an event or whatever. There's a whole area of conversational hypnosis and covert conversational hypnosis. So I think actually, for anyone involved in healing or therapies, is really worth a look at and an understanding of. Not necessarily greatly in depth, because it is a bit of a wormhole you can get lost down, but an understanding of how that works, because it's really possible to take an individual through. I mean, there's guys that I've ended up chatting to, there's something up, and they don't necessarily want to go there, they don't want to talk about it, but because you understand a little bit of conversational hypnosis, you can actually end up working with them, and they just think they're having a chat with you. They don't realize, they don't think, but by the end of it, whatever that was has transformed for them. And Okay, yeah, and I guess at the end of the day, you could always say it's all down to marketing. If you, the person that finds the right way to market some form of self-love, self-development, self-care
Mm.
package to your average bloke will make a fortune.
Mm.
Because I'm sure if you nailed it right and got it there, people would just be like, they'd be in.
Yeah. Mm.
But yeah.
There is one group I'm just gonna mention and just throw out there called Sacred Sons, and I've been following them for a while, and it looks amazing. I mean, they do like bushcraft and
Excellent.
wrestling and like throwing axes and stuff, but at the same time they have men's circles and talk. They throw an
Yep.
axe and they go, how are you feeling? And it just seems like a magic combination, and they are making huge waves around the world. And
That's
I know
good
they
work.
come to Scotland, but
Yeah.
yeah, whether that would resonate to men.
Certainly, I mean, if I think about kind of, again, I'm going to kind of go within my social circle rather than client base. But if I think within my social circle, those guys that would never consider going to therapy or some sort of holistic session would be definitely up for throwing axes. But again, you're going to hit that wall when it comes to that speaking about themselves.
Yeah.
If they thought that if you got them under their false pretenses, so we're going to go and do all this manly bushcraft and wrestling and axe throwing, and you know, they'd be, oh, that sounds great. If you said, and then we were going to sit around and talk about how we're feeling, and they'd just go, oh no, you're right, I'm off to the pub. And that's the barrier. But again, is it, you know, the men that want it, the men that need it will find it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's a wrong assumption to think that all men maybe need to do that. Maybe for some guys, their self-care and their self-love is that they work damn hard during the week, and then they go down the pub, talk nonsense, talk cars, and drink beer. And we look at that and go, long term, that's not a healthy thing. But maybe actually that is their ritual. Maybe that's their gift to themselves, because that is actually what does that for them. You know, they come away from that going, oh, I really enjoyed that gift of the weekend. Well, they wouldn't think that. Most one makes one think that way, but you know, I really enjoy that gift of the weekend. I had a great weekend. I'm feeling good again.
Yeah, and it's really making a stand for what brings you joy. I mean,
Yeah.
one of the motivations for this interview series was to offer people a buffet of all the different potential ways of looking after yourself. And I said to people, just really feel what resonates with you, and it might not be what you expect, and what you need and what you want can change every single day. You might want to be hypnotized on Friday, and then dance with me on Tuesday, and then do yoga on Wednesday, and that's completely fine. And it's not sticking to what you think you should do.
No, that's it. It's about listening to what you want to do. Should usually implies you're being told, or it's an expectation. If you're doing something for you that you feel like you should, then you're not really doing it for you. And take time. I mean, I was talking the other day to somebody who'd had, this was a guy actually, and he'd had anger issues, anger problems, and got a lot of help for it, some of which worked, some of which didn't. And he, if you'd have suggested this to him off the bat, would have kind of told you where to go. But he was on some anger management thing, and they broke out packs of origami paper and origami paper and like some basic instruction books. And he was the type of person who his idea of anger management would be going down a gym and belting the hell out of a punch bag or something, which actually never really seemed to work for him. And this paper was just left around, and he glanced at it, and he kind of picked it up, and that's his thing. It's not what he should have done. It's not what anyone told him to do. he just picked it up and found that it resonated for him. But if you'd have asked him before that day when he first got introduced to it, would you do this thing? It will help you relax. It will help you deal with your anger. He would have laughed his head off at you.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you think, and also if we when it comes to doing things for us, for our self-care, for our self-love, it shouldn't be a logical, intellectualized process.
Mm.
Um, our conscious minds, the logical part of our minds, are very limited.
Mm.
They can hold on to 7 to 9 bits of information at any one time. They don't dream. They don't have ideas. They're very good at solving conscious logical problems. But if you go, oh, if I do this, this, and this, then I'm going to feel more at peace and blah, 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 and you've researched it, it's all very logical and thought out. The likelihood is, one, you'll give up on whatever that practice was. Because, I mean, willpower is technically just a myth. Willpower is a sequence of logical steps that we say, if we do this, we'll achieve this. And 9 times out of 10 is completely undermined the moment we can't be bothered. I wake up one morning, I'm tired. Oh, sod that, I'm not going to do it. And so I think it's really important to allow a creative element into deciding and choosing and looking at those things that we're going to do for ourselves. That allow us to whether we're doing personal development and exploring that, or whether it's looking just for things to bring into our lives, because the unconscious mind, where your imagination, your dreams, every experience you've had, all your learning, basically everything that is you exists. That part of you knows what you really want. And quite often, quite a lot of the problems I deal with is when somebody's conscious logical mind is going, well, I left school and they said do this, this, and this, and life will be good. And now I'm doing this, this, and this. And yes, I've got money in the bank, but I feel miserable and wretched. Why I'm doing it. If we learn, again, whether it's through meditation, whether it's through hypnosis, whether it's through, one of my favorite exercises, I use it across the board, is getting people to, and it's a wonderful way of introducing time for yourself, and is to write down your ideal day, or your ideal week. But dream. I mean, don't imagine you're living on your own private island in the Bahamas type thing. Be realistic, but also dream. Using mine for example. And so what you do is you write this out. You write out and you go into detail. Why are you doing it? How does doing that thing make you feel? Everything from the breakfast you eat, the clothes you wear, to what you do during the day and what you do by the end of the day. And you write it out, spend about 3 or 4 hours doing this, and really let your imagination get into it. And what you're doing is, you're allowed, by engaging your imagination with it, you're actually listening to you better than you are if you're just thinking, well, that would be nice, that would be nice. Write it out and then leave it for a week. Just stick it in a drawer somewhere and come back to it. And then look at it. And like for me, when I first did this exercise, and I still come back to it now, one of the things, my ideal day would be waking up in a cottage somewhere near the sea, where I can walk down to a beach, go and do my yoga and meditation, come back up, have a nice healthy breakfast, and that would be my start to the day. I'm not going to go through the whole day. Now, obviously, at the moment, I don't live in a nice cottage, and to walk to the beach would take several days. But looking at that, this is my ideal day. This is the day that if I had to live every day of my life would make me feel happy, feel good. I can do yoga and meditation every morning. It might not be by a beach, but in doing that exercise, you're starting to note the things that to your unconscious mind are important. And some of those things may take time to make happen, but there are things in there that you can see, activities, pastimes, even jobs, that you can start going, actually, listening to me, caring about me, valuing me as a person. I would love to be doing that in my day. And
Yeah.
some of that thing, like I say, you might not be able to do straight away. Maybe there's something you need to learn. But wow, what a gift to give yourself, that time of learning
Yeah.
and growing and developing. But certain aspects of it, you know, if you get up every morning and have a fry up, but really deep down inside you just want that, you just want to be having a healthy breakfast, but you're just stuck in that habit that that's what I do, that's what my parents did, that's what guys that drive trucks do, or whatever it is. But
Yeah.
really, you want to get up and have muesli. Um, this identifies it, and you can start doing those little things for you, which lead you closer to living your ideal day. And if you're living your ideal day every day, life isn't such a bad place. And it is
Yeah,
about breaking stereotypes, breaking all the imposed ideas of what being, certainly I'm going to focus again on being a man, on what being a man is. I remember I played a gig up in Manchester, a big charity gig, and one of the acts was Nick Turner, who's the saxophone player from Hawkwind. And not everyone knows them, but for me that was kind of a cool thing. And it was great because Nick he joined me on the stage for one of my songs, and it was a wonderful gig. And then I found out that he was stopping over at my friend's house where I was stopping over. Now, you know, Hawkwind being who they are, kind of rock legends, psychedelic travelers, and yeah. So you kind of, the next morning we're all around the breakfast table. I'm like, oh my God, I'm having breakfast with like one of the guys from one of my favorite bands, that's Ace. And my mate Rick comes downstairs. He said, I'll do a fry up for everyone. Do you up for a fry up, Nick? And Nick turns around and goes, no, thank you. I've got my orange juice and muesli. And the thing is, my expectation of him was rock and roll, you know. So I was expecting him to go for the fry up. To see this legend of just having fruit juice and muesli completely broke every stereotype, every imposed expectation. And why wouldn't he? Of course. But he was just being him. He was doing what he needed to do for him to feel good. And that's what, that's not just what men need to do. It's what we all need to do.
Yeah.
We all need to be looking at who we are, what makes life good for us, and then doing our very best to live that. And if we're doing that, the people around us benefit from it too. It reaches out, it touches other people. You know, it's not a selfish act to take care of yourself and to love yourself.
Yeah.
Because those that are around you will benefit from a better you. So, yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, so I encourage you all, this is your homework, to go away now and do your ideal day. And yeah, like Rob said, there might be things that come up, like going to the beach that you can't do, but looking behind that thing and what is it that you hope that that thing would create. So what's the feeling behind that you're actually
That's it.
longing for, you know? Is it something
What are
security
those
or
highest
joy?
what are the highest qualities that talks of? And then focus in, how do I get more of that in my life? How do I get more relaxation? How do I get more love? How do I get more inner peace? And look at the things you've told yourself you need to do, because that's what you're doing. But if anyone wants to kind of me to go through that with them, then they can always drop me a message, and I will quite happily, whether I email them or have a quick chat over Zoom, quite happy to just go into that a little bit more in depth with people if they want. That's not a problem.
Yeah, of course. So let us know how you get on with your homework. And you can also comment below this video as well, and I will put Rob's details, his website, below for you as well to check him out more. So before we finish, I have one last question. I've asked this to all the people in the interviews so far, and it's for I know. Not scary.
Yeah.
So I'd like you to share your absolute number one tool in your self-care kit. And this is for you personally, and it doesn't have to be hypnotism, meditation, anything. It could be, oh, I don't know, eating pears at midnight, whatever random thing that your number one thing that you just love, brings you joy.
Oh, it's gonna probably be playing music, playing guitar and singing, which at the moment we're limited with.
Mm.
But I love going and joining music sessions. You kind of find a little pub somewhere down a side street in a town somewhere that's got a bit of music playing, and just sitting with other people, playing music with other people. It's not just a gift to me. It just I stop. Me as a Rob stops in those moments.
Mm.
I become part of something else. The music plays, and it's like, yeah, I stop, and I just am, and something else plays, something else takes over, and it doesn't matter where I've been in my life, whether I've been on a high or whether I've been really quite low. Going and doing that has always lifted me, always healed and helped that healing process. Yeah, it's yeah. So I was just getting lost in it at the moment, thinking about it. So yeah.
Yeah, no, you can see, and and you start glowing when you talk about it. And yeah, when go away and think about that, people that are watching this video, what makes you glow, what makes you completely light up, and it might not be what you expect at all.
And then ask yourself, how do I get more of this in my life?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Oh, well, fabulous. Thank you so much, Rob, for being
Absolute
interviewed
pleasure.
today. It's been really, amazing talking to you. Thank you so much. And yeah, continue watching all these wonderful interviews. There's so much more to come in the buffet. Thanks, and I shall see you all soon.